Good afternoon and welcome to the Board of Commissioners special called meeting, our work session for March 24th. We have a couple of little items to go through. The first is from Community Development. Mr. Dana Johnson.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Dana Johnson with Cobb County Community Development. I am here with Mr. Philip Westbrook, and we are going to give you a brief presentation on something that we have not, I think only two of you on this board have been part of this in the past, and that is our process to go through and do our 10-year update to our comprehensive plan. This is something that is mandated by the Department of Community Affairs. We do it once every 10 years. It is basically a 2-year process since we use in-house staff in order to accomplish this goal. And I'm just going to go through a little bit of a brief introduction, or Phil and I are going to go through a brief introduction of what we're going to be doing over the course of the next 2 years to update our comprehensive plan and involve the community in that. Before I get going, I want to make a quick plug in here. You'll notice the logo that has been presented here. This is a logo that Ms. Ekwa Liao with Cobb County Communications developed for us, developed the slogan, and developed the overall logo that we're going to be using as part of our branding effort to make sure the community is aware when you see this brand that this is the documentation as it relates to our 10-year comprehensive plan update. So I want to thank Communications for their assistance on putting all that together. What we're going to do is just very briefly talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan, the purpose of it, how it's used by the community and by the board, and then Phil will come up and talk a little bit in particular about the 2040 plan development process, and then some of the requirements that are on us as it relates to state mandates for comprehensive plans. As most of you know, but as brief background for the community, our comprehensive plan is our main policy document for growth and development. It's how we grow over time, and in this case, as we're developing this new plan, the time horizon will be out to 2040. So we'll be using 2040 population and employment projections to develop our land use scenarios and infrastructure needs to meet that future growth that we have and future growth needs that we have here in the county. All of what we do is based on not just public opinion, but also hard data. There is hard data about the impacts that different growth has, infrastructure needs, and things like that. So what we'll be doing is melding a combination of data about how Cobb is going to change over the next 20 years, 20, 30 years, but also get the public opinion and public input about helping us vision the count that they want to see out in that time horizon as well. We do this because it is mandated by the state of Georgia. The Georgia Planning Act of 1989 mandates that all counties and cities in the state have a comprehensive plan. Why we do this the way that we do it is more integral and more important. Our comprehensive plan is an economic development tool. By showing other people, investors, future residents, that we are a community that is serious about our future, that we're promoting a healthy and vibrant environment, that we are open to private investment, and not only that, but invest ourselves in our community, that we are putting forward a very strong economic development argument, that this is a place you want to be, you want to bring your business here, you want to bring your family here. How this is used, again, this is your main policy document that the Board of Commissioners, the Planning Commission, and that the public, private citizens use when they're making investment decisions on their own property or in infrastructure. This is also a way that we coordinate internally so that all of us are talking together, Parks and Recreation, DOT, Community Development, Public Safety, so that all of us are taking our various plans and programs that we have going on and bringing it together to think about it holistically. So we think about how all of these different and disparate actions are coming together to build a great Cobb County. And with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Westbrook to come up and talk a little bit about something that's been handed out to you already called the 2040 Plan Development Document that is going to go into a little bit of the details about what it is we're going to do over the next 2 years.
Thanks, Dana. Good afternoon, Philip Westbrook, Community Development. As Dana went over some of the background information as it relates to the benefits of the comprehensive plan. I'm going to go through our Cobb 2040 plan development, which is a framework guide that provides strategies on the plan update process to ensure that our 10-year update meets or exceeds and meets state requirements. The Cobb 2040 Plan Development Guide is a roadmap document that will guide the development of the Cobb 2040 Comprehensive Plan. It was prepared by Community Development, and it goes into detail about the state minimum standards and essential procedures of updating the plan. The guidebook provides information regarding elements, data needs, project organization, scheduling, and the public participation plan. Per the Department of Community Affairs, each community has required elements that must be included in the new comprehensive plan, depending upon the jurisdiction's whether they meet certain criteria. In addition, each community is encouraged to go beyond the required elements and supplement their plan with optional elements that would be advantageous or would be a good fit to the community. We have suggested 15 elements that will be explored and analyzed. Of these 15, 6 are required and then 9 are optional. And we feel that these 9 optional would be a benefit to the county. They range from some of the past elements like community facilities, very simplistic element, all the way down to disaster resilience, to military compatibility. Those are some of the new elements that we'll be adding to this 10-year update. Each element will have its own specific type of data needs that will need to be researched, collected, and analyzed. The plan development guide, the guide that you have before you, also provides a systematic progression of how the comp plan update process will move forward. This illustration here on the slide was developed to help get a better understanding of how the planning process will evolve and to be able to communicate to others how the process will flow. Just quickly going through this flow, we'll start off our public kickoff hearing in late April, which is set for April 28th. We'll be asking the Board of Commissioners for nominations and recommendations for a steering committee members. Staff will be creating a project management team to oversee the update process. And then the lower half of this slide goes into the public participation phase of the project, which is 3 sets of community meetings, 9 total meetings and workshops together. And then the steering committee meetings will precede and follow each set of the community meetings to sort of present the presented material to the steering committee, as well as go over and brief them on information that was gathered through the community meetings. The Plan Development Guide also provides a draft outline of the comprehensive plan document. The plan outline was created to get a better understanding of the different elements and components of how they will fit within the overall document. To ensure that the Cobb 2040 plan is manageable and concise, there will also be a separate background report that sets the foundation for the Cobb 2040 plan. If you've noticed, some of our past comprehensive plans are fairly thick. We're going to try to limit that and get them as thin as possible, easier to read. A lot of the background information, some of the needs and opportunities, some of the existing conditions will be part of the background report, whereas our comprehensive plan will just be the goals, policies, and the vision of Cobb County for the next 10 years. One of our initial items was create a general schedule to kind of get together a better grasp of the requirements and time frame that we have to complete the plan update process. The important thing here to note is that the qualified local government certification expires on Halloween of 2017. As we know, that's easily over 2 years from now. And because of the initial stages of this project beginning early, there is built-in time to methodically go through every issue and concern that we have or that comes up through the plan building process. And then I don't have it on the slide, but we also have a detailed schedule that was put together to effectively manage the project, and that is within your plan development document.
Let me see it for a minute.
One of the most important aspects of the plan update will be public participation. Civic engagement is a central component to any planning process, which is why it is required by the state. More importantly, though, input from stakeholders and the general public ensures that the plan reflects the full range of the community's needs and values. This public participation plan explains and gives details on the process of engaging citizens, business owners, and other stakeholders with varying interests and perspectives. One of the avenues staff will utilize to generate a diversity of opinions is to establish a steering committee. The purpose of this steering committee is to assist in the development of the plan document by having a number of stakeholders from different backgrounds and specialties working together to guide the planning process and offer innovative ideas and strategies related to the Cobb vision. What you see here is a list of suggested groups of stakeholders and the number of stakeholders that are being suggested that may be a part of the steering committee. As you can see, they represent a wide range of individuals from varying backgrounds. If you notice, we've got elected officials and planning commissioners. We have two pieces. What we were thinking about was some sort of rotational basis as we move through the process. So some of the groups range from elected officials to millennial representatives, the Cobb NAACP, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, some of the educational components that are around the county, whether it be high school, college, technical schools, staff. So a wide range of stakeholder groups that we're looking to add to our steering committee. And then in general, there are three effective types of participation techniques in our public participation plan that will be used. Public education, which is the process where training, instruction, and information are presented to the public as a means of expanding knowledge and understanding about the community. Public input, which is the process of receiving contributions from the community. And then public interaction, which is the participation technique that allows for the active communication and interface with the public in a way that will influence decision making. This public interaction technique is where the public education and public input combine in an effort to gain information. And that pretty much concludes the walkthrough, the plan development document. Some of the next steps that we will be working on is creating a website for the project. Also, we're going to be asking the board to help us out on and assisting us on identification of a steering committee. The project management team will begin research and collecting data and analyzing that information, and then we'll also begin preparing and scheduling steering committee interviews. Some of the meetings coming up, we've got the public kickoff hearing coming up in late April. That's when the update process will start. And then we plan to have a meet and greet for the steering committee to meet each other and go over some of the roles that we intend them to have in the steering committee. And then we will be looking at holding steering committee interviews probably around mid to late summer. So as you can see, we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we look forward to any comments that the board may have, and the public, looking forward to any comments from the public as well. Thank you.
Great. Any question for either Dana or Philip from the board? All right, Dana.
May I add one more thing, Chairman?
Yep.
On your last meeting in April, we will be holding a public hearing in order to ask the board to adopt this plan development document. This has been provided to you. It's posted on the website. We are in a public review period right now for the public to take a look at this and give us ideas on how we can make sure we're doing this in a way that meets the community's needs. So I just wanted to give you that notice so you'd be prepared for that in the next month. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? One very, very deep insight I have on this process, which is going to change the course of what you do for the next few months, and is you need to add a date to this document.
Yes, sir. We'll do that.
That was heavy. I know that. Just, if you need extra time to recover, let me know. So let's go to tab 2. We have the pleasure of hearing from Judge Marshall Light today from State Court. Thank you for being here. This agenda item is to present information regarding the implementation of a behavioral health court program.
First of all, I would like to say I appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon. It's such a pleasure to see all of you together. I'm out in the community often, and it's so very rare that I see all of you together with Mr. Hankerson and with Ms. Dance. So I do appreciate the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with you. As you know, State Court and the Solicitor's Office have worked for several months in developing a plan to start a behavioral health court in State Court, which focuses just on misdemeanor crimes. We have a mental health court in Superior Court that focuses on individuals with mental disabilities that have been charged with felonies, but I'm going to focus just on what we are trying to accomplish with misdemeanors. And this is a very simplistic PowerPoint. I'm going to go through it kind of quickly. Everyone is aware of what a mental illness is. It's a condition that disrupts a person's thinking, feeling, mood, and ability to operate in our society. It's just like a disease that an ordinary person would have. Well, we know that our community has numerous individuals with mental disability. Well, what is the problem? The problem is that we're running out of resources that can treat these individuals, especially when they come into a court of law. When they come into a court of law, we're almost at a standstill because we are not trained ourselves to treat them, and they're leaving the court without any treatment whatsoever. This is a list of mental health facilities that have closed in many recent years. Georgia Mental Health Institute. In 1999, the Supreme Court ruled that all states must move individuals with mental health illnesses out of state-run institutions and into settings integrated within their communities. Northwest Georgia Regional closed in 2011. West Paces closed in 99. Parkway closed in 2002. Kennestone closed in the 90s. At one point, Milledgeville had the largest mental health facility, and that closed in 2014. Okay, when a person comes in and they've committed a crime, it's either go back on the streets or stay in jail. Right now, many mental ill offenders spend unnecessary time in jail, and lacking access to mental health treatment services on release, they often become repeat offenders and cycle through the justice system again. And I'm going to kind of interject some insights in here. Yesterday, I went to the Cobb County Adult Detention Center, and I went to a tour of their mental health ward. And I don't know if you're familiar with the mental health ward at the Cobb County Adult Detention Center, but it was extremely impressive. They have a triage unit there. They have wards for different types of injuries, anything that can stem from a mental illness. And there was a gentleman there that had come in on misdemeanor charges, and he had been diagnosed with a mental illness. And while he was there, he jumped off the second floor of the building, and this is all while we were there yesterday, twice. Not once, but twice. And each time he did it, he further injured himself. Now, this is a prime example of what this behavioral court program is trying to do. And he also got in a fight with the guards there. So it elevated his misdemeanor charges into felony charges while he was there incarcerated at the jail. So this is a gentleman that definitely needs treatment. Now, at the Cobb County Adult Detention Center, they have psychiatrists. They have a whole team of mental health treatment that can help them, but they can only help them for a little while because their stay in the jail cannot be indefinite. The presence of defendants with mental illness in the criminal justice system imposes substantial costs on that system and substantial harm on the defendants. Current data that I have, Cobb County Adult Detention Center spends $309,000 per year just on psychiatric medications for the defendants that are currently in their jail. There are 363 individuals that have been diagnosed currently in the Adult Detention Center. It's difficult, if not impossible, to provide humane and just treatment in depth that they need. Again, I was extremely impressed with the mental health ward at the jail. They do the best they can. Their doctors and staff are absolutely wonderful, and they're working very, very hard. It takes around $58 a day to take care of an inmate. If they have a mental illness, that figure is escalated. Currently, there's about 76 people at the jail, 76% of the people that have co-occurring disorders. And again, I gave you the stats of the current figures. In state prison, the current capacity is 36,000 people, currently housing 38,000 people. Many of these individuals have mental illnesses. What is the solution? A behavioral health court represents an effort to increase effective cooperation between the two systems that have traditionally not worked well together, which is the mental health system and the criminal justice system. Why we have desired to create a behavioral health court is to hold the defendants accountable and assist these offenders to achieve long-term stability, become law-abiding, and become successful family community members. It's a voluntary post-plea judicial supervised treatment-based program for those defendants with a documented mental health diagnosis. That's part of the plan, is to make sure that they are documented with a mental health diagnosis. The program that we are hoping for will be from 12 to 24 months, with participants meeting a set of evidence-based goals in a total of 4 different phases. Mr. Morgan can probably walk you through the phases that his office has designed, taking a defendant from coming into the court system all the way through the completion of the program. And the goal is to improve the mental health, promote self-sufficiency, reduce recidivism, and offer cost-effective alternatives to incarceration and hospitalization for participants. And this is just some examples of some House bills that the state has done very well with accountability courts. And to date, Cobb County Jail, with my visit out there yesterday, they are at its lowest capacity that they've been at in years, and I believe it's due to one thing, because of the accountability courts that Cobb County has. They've got the family intervention courts and the juvenile court with Judge Stedman. They've got Judge Green's Veterans Court. They've got Judge Clayton's DUI court. They've got Judge Staley's mental health court. Because of all of these accountability courts, it's decreasing the numbers of the population at the county of jail, which is good, because the jail's budget, from my understanding, is somewhere around $10 million. It costs a lot of money to run that jail. So if the defendants are out of jail, that's good for Cobb County, and they need to have some type of treatment, because if they're not having some type of treatment or involved in some accountability, they're just going to be repeat offenders, whether they're misdemeanors or whether they elevate to felonies later on. And again, this is just part of some of the House bills. The state's budget in 2013 was $9 million for accountability courts. These right here are the current list of counties in Georgia that have mental health courts. And according to the Georgia Department of Corrections, 2,400 probationers with mental illness returned to prison in 2011 for technical violations. 20% of these suffer from mental health illnesses. 3,500 a month were identified intake to have mental illness. So we know that this population exists. What we're trying to do is direct resources to them so it won't come back on the taxpayers to be another incarceration. We're targeting, hopefully, mid-summer, June or July, to start this program. And the goal of the program is 5-fold: faster case processing time, improve access to mental health treatment services, improve the individual's well-being, reduce recidivism, improve public safety. Our target population, they must be a Cobb County resident. It must be documented with a mental health diagnosis, moderate to high risk of reoffending, 17 years of age or older, no violent felony offenses in the past, no immigration holds, voluntary desire to participate. There are exclusions, pretty much you'll see those on the board, and they have to be competent enough to enter a plea. Who makes a referral? They can be referred by the police, attorney, circuit defender, family, probation officer, a prosecutor, a judge. Program features treatment, regular court appearances, frequent random alcohol drug testing, curfew checks, house searches, employment, and education requirements. What does this program offer? Medication therapy, supportive employment, illness management and recovery, family education, group therapy, social skills training, supported housing, case management. Who would be on the behavioral health court team? Obviously, judge, there's a treatment coordinator. That particular position, that is a very vital position. We have not even considered who might be that person. Obviously, Solicitor General Barry Morgan. There'll be a circuit defender, defense attorney, someone to look after the rights of the participant defendant, the deputy sheriff, probation officer, the treatment representative, and a community representative. Program needs. I think that the accountability court director, case manager, the individual that I said we have not picked, we believe the salary probably for that individual would be somewhere around $35,000. For the treatment provider, I am figuring on around $250,000. State court is not going to cost us any money to do what we want to do with this program. I have spoken with Angie Davis with the state court clerk's office. She indicates to me that there's not going to be any increase in her office financially to start this behavioral health court program, and I've also spoken with sentence enforcement, and they indicate the same thing. There's not going to be any cost in their costs to participate in this program. So I am projecting $285,000. Now, how long that carries us, I hope it's going to carry us 6 months to possibly 12 months, depending on the participants that would participate in it initially. How does it sustain itself? And I'm going to skip to this just a little bit. I know this is a little hard for you to see, but the program is going to have to survive on grants and funding, state and federal. And this gets very, very detailed, but I've kind of given you some ideas that I believe that are going to work. There are U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, grants and funding, and as you can see, I've listed them. I know they're a little small, but there are grants out there. That's how most mental health courts or behavioral courts survive. They're going to survive on the funding that's available from the federal level and from the state level. Many individuals have insurance, or we can help with the treatment team get them on the Affordable Care Act insurance. There are numerous ways. And again, that's going to be a vital key in the length of this program, is to make sure that it can self-sustain in the future. At this point, I would like to ask Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions, Mr. Hankerson or Mrs. Dance?
Who would like to go first? Commissioner Burrow.
Yes. Thank you, Judge Lake. That was a very good presentation. My question is, I guess, kind of twofold. You have to have a formal approval from the Georgia Judicial Council,
Correct.
and is that in order to receive grants or apply for grants, or do you have to have that to start up the program? Is that in the works?
That is in the works. That's an excellent question. I have a portfolio right here, and I'm just going to read you off the contents, because if any of you want to look at the material, not only, yes, to apply for grants, you have to have that certification, but to even operate, you just can't open up your doors one day and say, oh, I'm going to operate a behavioral health court or mental health court. There are standards that you have to apply for that go in stages, and I have the application in this portfolio. I have applied for the initial certification. again, to get full accreditation, it goes in stages because they want to, a lot of it depends on the stats and how well you're doing, with the program, how many people are participating, how many people are making progress through the different phases. So as you progress lengthwise, you get to rise up in your certification, but they'll give you a waiver to start the program. The Judicial Council gives you a waiver, a promise, yes, we know you're going to start it, we're watching you, you have to follow all of our guidelines, and you have to keep in constant contact and give us constant feedback about your program.
Okay.
So it's twofold. They want to make sure you're doing everything correctly, and two, you have to have that certification to get the grants.
But
And
you-
we have
you can-
applied for an initial grant with just a startup program.
Okay.
You can apply for initial grant knowing that your program has not started yet, which we have applied for.
And do you have a time frame of when you should receive that, or do they have to see the program?
Initially, they
For
don't,
6
they have to
months, or-
see some paperwork on it, but the time frame is probably not towards the end of the summer until maybe the fall before they decide.
Anyone
you.
else? Ms. Cupid?
Good afternoon,
Good
Judge
afternoon.
Lake. Good to see you. Can you speak a little bit to the requirement for having to have a documented mental health diagnosis to be eligible for the program?
Yes. When an individual, on a misdemeanor level, here's what typically happens. An individual gets arrested. They go to jail. They're in jail. Maybe the family might bond them out. But statistically, on a misdemeanor, the jails have been so full because the misdemeanors aren't the most serious crimes out there. Cobb County has an OR bond procedure. They're going to OR them, meaning they don't have to put up any money to get out. So let's say they get their OR bond, or their family bonds them out because they've been in there. Cobb County Adult Detention Center is more concerned about the murders and the ag assaults that's happening. And here's this whole wave of people coming through with misdemeanors. So an individual gets out of jail either by family bonding them out or they're OR'd out. They have a court date. They come into court. Many times the prosecutor, I'm an ex-prosecutor, when you're sitting there trying to prosecute an individual, they're just not getting it for whatever reason, or they're acting up in court or whatnot. Or an attorney, circuit defender or private attorney, says, we've got this case that my client has a mental illness. That's the type of individual that would make an application. Now, the solicitor's office, if you want to hear from Mr. Morgan, he's right here, or I can just tell you, they have put together a screening process that an individual would make an application to the behavioral health court. His whole office screens that person, because if someone's just out knocking down mailboxes and says, oh, I'm bipolar, I want to get in the program, that's not what's going to happen. There has to be some kind of a indicator that the person has a mental disability. If they meet their screening process for the solicitor's office,
Okay.
then the treatment provider would, within a 2 to 3 week turnaround time, provide a mental health psychiatric on them and document, is there really a mental illness or not? Now, in going out to the jail's mental health ward, I asked them about that very thing. Just because someone says they have a mental illness, how do you verify that? And Dr. Hindash, who's a brilliant man, says it comes from a collaboration of the community. You have to talk to their family. You have to look at their past medical records. You don't trust anything that they just, or the attorney or the prosecutor says. I think everything has to be very well documented, and it's pulling information from 5 or 6 different sources, and that's the only way a true mental health diagnosis can be made. If they've got that mental health diagnosis, and they want to voluntarily enter the program, I'm sure Mr. Morgan's going to accept them at that point.
Okay. It's just assuring to know that they don't have to have necessarily a medical diagnosis prior.
No, and most
I
people
guess-
don't know
Yeah,
that.
exactly. They may not know until they have.
They
a-
don't know that.
yeah.
But you're going to get a
Incident.
lot of information just from the person's environment,
Yeah.
you know. And usually, if they've been OR'd out, that means their family is just kind of, you know, we don't want anything else to do. This is just repetitive behavior. Or their family just doesn't have it. But no, they don't have to have a diagnosis up front. They will have it. And one of the keys is to get it in a very quick turnaround time, because this person is just sitting out in society without any
Yeah.
support.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioner Ott?
I just have one. I mean, listening to what you just said, I thought you said earlier that it's a post-plea. So you said that they get bonded out, usually. So is this, I'm kind of looking at the time frame. I mean, it sounds like a lot of this stuff has to happen before the case is resolved, but is post-plea, doesn't that mean the case is resolved?
I'm gonna let Mr. Morgan come on up. He's a prosecutor nowadays.
Well, we didn't want him to sit back there and make you do all the work.
Exactly. I think it is a post plea, but that's where we get into the nuts and bolts of changing the behavior. But we have to get that diagnosis prior to. So I think as Judge Lake says, once we make the determination to send a case to, that we feel is appropriate through our guidelines, to send to the mental health, the behavioral health court team, who then finally makes that determination, are they acceptable into the program and can we change behavior? That evaluation that Judge Lake is talking about is a part of that team process before we can get to the post plea. So yes, there is some upfront work that has to be done through this court, but then once they are evaluated and accepted into the program, that's where the meat of the program comes in.
Okay, thanks.
One
Yes, sir.
Mr. Morgan.
Yes.
I noticed that, when you're planning on a 12 to 24-month program, yet a misdemeanor is a year or less. So why would people want to do this, I guess, in your opinion?
You know, it's been my experience with these types of cases that the system, including the defense attorneys, who are supposedly working and do work for the best interest of their clients, see that these issues transcend, maybe yes, and one could argue that, a 12-month sentence is so much better than a 24-month program. But if we're going to truly change in what's in the best interests of their client, then this 24-month program is better for their client. And it's certainly better from our perspective for the citizens of Cobb that we represent. So, I mean, I have so many attorneys, defense attorneys, who tell me, look, this guy, he's competent to stand trial. I mean, he does know the difference between right and wrong, but he's not going to control his behavior. And so, you can put him on probation, but he's going to be back. We've got to do something to get the resources to the people that we don't have the expertise in. So that's why we need to partner with a group of psychologists, psychiatrists who do know how to get those resources to these folks. And so again, will we have some defense attorneys who will say, that's not in the best interest of my client, so I won't do that? Yes, we will. But will we have others who will see the long-term benefit to their client, and that's what their duty is? Yes, we'll have those too. And I think we'll have a very successful program.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Judge.
One more thing I wanted to add
Please.
on that. I believe Mr. Morgan is planning on offering, if someone successfully completes the program, then their guilty plea will be expunged.
Yes.
Okay, that's a huge incentive for someone If they successfully go through the program and complete it, their guilty plea is gonna be expunged. They're not gonna have that charge on their record, which will make them more employable. And part of this behavioral court is to work in phase 4, is to work with them in employment. So there is a carrot out there that we're hoping that an individual will want to have the benefit of. And statistic-wise, I know Ms. Morgan kept saying he, okay? He has mental illness. More women than men have mental illnesses.
No comment.
I know. This is why I'm telling.
We knew that.
Wait, I'm not done yet. More
We
women are
rest our case.
documented with mental illness. However, more men commit the crimes.
That's because we're told to. Thank you very much. There's some, by the voices, there's some background material that some of the old courts have done that I think can help quantify what you're trying to get to. Clearly, we need to talk with Human Resources because there's some numbers in there that aren't all-inclusive. And the same thing with, we have our new building going up down on County Services Road, so the cops can divert folks to it if they're concerned that there might be some mental illness. So, Mr. Hankerson, if you can get with the clerk and whoever, the judge and who else, to try to work out that background stuff in the next couple of weeks before, when she's submitting for the grants, she has the right information. I think that'd be important. Some of the stuff, if you'd send us your PowerPoint, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. And
Mr.
on behalf of Milton Beck, Chief Deputy at the jail, he wants to invite all of you out to view his.
He looks for any reason not to do his real job.
I think a lot of that's been done, Mr. Chairman, and I think the next step, not to put words in the judge's mouth, but there probably will be an agenda item coming at the next commission meeting to do the one-time upfront funding led by Commissioner Weatherford. So if we don't hear otherwise, then I think there's plans to bring an agenda forward.
Okay, well, my biggest concern is this. It's been referenced, a 2-year program,
12 to 24 months.
yeah, with a 1-year funding. So if we only fund it for a year, if it only gets funded for a year and you got someone that's in the middle of a program in year 13, month 13, and the court quits, and he or she is hanging out there, the transition period, then what happens? So that, I mean, I say that to say that that's what I'm talking about. There's
That's
more
good.
more than just putting the
That's
numbers
gonna-
down.
We're gonna put an RFP out for a provider. That's gonna be part of the provider. The provider just, if funding runs low, provider just can't quit. I mean, none of us are gonna just quit. Provider's got to.
I'm not suggesting that you're gonna quit. Not what I'm suggesting. I guess I have to be brought up to speed in some of the conversations you've had to date with the county manager and with this Commissioner Weatherford, so I can get
Right.
up to speed on what's going on.
But I do want to thank all of you for your time.
Absolutely.
much.
Thanks for coming here.
Excuse
Barry,
me,
thanks
Chairman,
for
I'm
being here.
sorry. I
Pardon me?
just wanted to follow up with the
Sure.
question that you asked. Is it anticipated that you're going to need funding outside of the grants referred to start up this program? I.e., you would need, from what I'm hearing, you would need to come to the commissioners with a request for funding. Would that be from the general fund? Will we be asked to provide seed funds for the program?
Right.
And was that documented in that 285,000?
Come back.
Go back. Wrong way. $35,000 was for the mental health coordinator. The rest of it was for the provider.
I think you have to go
There
back.
were not going to be any additional costs for state court, nor the clerk's office, or sentence enforcement.
But is that one-time money to start the program, then it'll be self-sustaining?
Correct.
So it won't be ongoing 285,000 or any amount from the commissioners, or you would have to come back to us for a request for any,
Anything else we would
Additional.
have to come back.
It's,
I'm sorry.
wait, guys, wait. Do you have something to say?
Yeah, I want to
please.
follow up with the information
Sure.
provided.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you. You would be seeking funding from the BOC. Are you adding staff as well? Is that what I'm seeing here, that there would be additional staff beyond state court staff for the program?
The only person, we already have staff, and there's a slide in there that gives you a detailed list of 10 people who are going to participate in the team approach. The only team member that needs to be paid with additional funding besides our current salaries, which we're going to be doing this, is the $35,000 first line item for the treatment coordinator.
Okay.
There's not going to be any additional costs for state court for any personnel, clerk's office, solicitor's office, or SEU.
And that'll be worked out, and when you bring back your next
Yeah.
agenda item, that'll have to be in more detail as to where the funding's
Okay.
coming from, all that kind of stuff. You threw out Milton's name. I'm confident you've talked to the sheriff about this, and he's
He-
supporting this.
He's in Perry, Georgia.
He's what?
In Perry, Georgia right now.
Okay.
So I have not verbally talked, but text, yes,
Okay, so he supports it?
yes.
Thank you. Any other
And
questions?
so does Superior Court Chief Judge Stephen Schuster. He wrote a letter to the Judicial Council. May I
Sure.
read it?
You may, I don't, yeah, all that information will be included in the agenda item when we bring it forward, as background
Basically, it
material.
says Superior Court supports the interest of state court and their efforts in serving our county by providing a court that can serve defendants with mental illnesses who have committed misdemeanor criminal charges. So we do have the support of
Perfect.
Superior Court for this.
Appreciate it. Any other questions? Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank
That
you.
concludes our work session. We come back at 7 o'clock tonight for tab 3.